People are always fascinated with the unknown, like strange, unexplained phenomena people love. 3 people went into the woods and never were seen again. You're like, well, that's been happening for 1,000 years. Like, an super expensive plane flown by professionals, you know, took off, was never seen again. I think it freaks us out.
First start out in the game, it's kind of like, where am I? I think I might be somewhere in South America. What's going on here? It rapidly progresses to like, oh my God, what? Where have I found myself?
そうですね、やっぱり人間はですね、いろんな謎を解き明かしたいみたいな気持ちがあると思うんですね。そのバーミューダトライアングルのその謎みたいなところがですね、この世界観の中に含まれてますので。
The basic backstory of Dark Void is you start out the game playing as an everyman cargo pilot named Will. And Will is on a routine cargo mission to London. And on that mission, he has to fly over the Bermuda Triangle. That doesn't go over very well for him. He ends up crash landing into this parallel dimension known as the Void.
The backstory for Dark Void actually has its roots in popular conspiracy theory.
っていうのを、入れることっていうのはすごく話が膨らみやすいというかですね、厚みを持たせやすいんで。
What's funny is if you actually do some research on it, not a lot of things actually got lost there, but there's this mystery that always surrounds it because it's this unknown thing.
I think the Bermuda Triangle is special because it was only really with the advent of what we consider modern technology did it start to really pick up its myths.
When you go into the void, you'll come across all of these elements that have existed on Earth in the past that have gone through these. You'll see like a big ship hulk that's embedded in the side of a gigantic mountain because it came flying through from the Bermuda Triangle and then just wrecked against the side of the mountain.
みんなが、その中でその謎を解き明かしていくのかみたいなところもあってですね。
We designed the Void specifically around a couple key gameplay elements that we have. One is vertical cover.
We actually kind of redesigned our world to support it. As we evolved the gameplay, you know, we had to change the entire story and the world and everything. This is where the concept of the Void came from. It's a place that requires vertical combat.
We started with the shooting and the covering and the flight, and vertical came on board. The concept of the Void in the fiction came as a means to give relevance to the gameplay, and that's how the universe really started to take off.
The environments are really invented to enhance a sense of vertigo. Big, huge drop-offs, spaces that are fun to fly through.
You'll notice when you're looking at the Void that there's a lot of kind of islands that are sticking up out of this weird, cloudy nothingness. And we tried to keep those spires really long, so there's a lot of vertical nature just to the environment in general.
We're twisting the concept of space and up and down and everything in it to give you this sense of being in somewhere which is quite otherworldly. There is a kind of grim, romantic, fantastic quality to it. It feels dangerous, but at the same time there's kind of this dark beauty to it all.
Imagine Earth in its primordial days in the ooze, and then throw that into outer space in a different plane of existence, and you're starting to get close to what the Void is.
There's that old question, would you rather be invisible or would you rather fly? I think we're answering it with flight in this game. Dark Void was something that kind of organically fell into place. In the beginning, when we were initially talking with Capcom, we had, we had a guy with a grappling hook. He would get in planes, and he would fly around, and he'd jump out, and he'd parachute, and he'd fight big robots.
It started out with a really solid foundation, but we found ourselves at one point going, you know what, this just isn't cool enough.
There's something missing, something really big. We all went off, we thought about it, and about a week later, Jose came back. He hadn't slept. He's scribbling on the whiteboard, showing me stuff, and he goes, "Here it is. It's vertical combat."
You know, on a horizontal surface, I'm in cover, and if I stand up and get off that cover, I'm standing up and I can run around it. On a vertical surface, when you're moving up and you're fighting, you can't stand up, and in fact, if you try to, you're gonna fall to your death.
So no longer are you able just to hunker down completely safe while you reload and the enemies wait for you to come to them. Now you're holding on with one hand and you're scaling up vertical surfaces and you're scaling down. You feel like there's a 360-degree combat sphere because you're looking up, down, to the side, behind you, over your shoulder, scanning for targets. So suddenly you feel like you're in the center of just this chaotic mess.
Vertical combat started to stretch the whole project into ways that we never anticipated. The rocket pack followed afterwards. We did redesigns of the environment from scratch to support it all. It all fell into place when we got those new ideas. The jetpack is not perfect, and that's one reason why it's awesome. There's almost a sense of being just barely in control with this jetpack. In other words, it feels like you've just strapped a 30-pound rocket to your back, and when you hit the go button, there's that moment of chaos where your arms and legs are flailing and you take off.
When I was a kid, I used to be on rope swings a lot, and that was kind of fun. There's always that moment where right after you get off the rope swing, there's that, ooh, you know, you have that moment where your stomach kind of drops out. I think that's a fun feeling, and hopefully we can capture some of that in here.
そうですね、やっぱりワクワクする感じっていうか、本当にアドベンチャーの世界に入っていた感じっていうかですね、やっぱり空飛ぶっていうことは、実際には人間はできませんけども、本当に自分が、飛んでですね。
If you've played some of the previous games that a lot of people at Airtight have worked on, like Crimson Skies, you have a really good idea for what our flight mechanics are going to be like, and that's accessible, a little arcadey. When you hit that button, you take off. We want it to feel like, okay, cool, I get it, I know how to fly this thing.
This is a game where we want you to just have a blast, either on foot or flying.
そうですね、やっぱり敵からいろんなものを奪ってですね、で自分が飛べるようになってっていうだから成長とですね、それと、自分のなんていうかなやっぱり
The jetpack, when you first get it, it starts off sort of diminutive. It's a hover pack, which in and of itself is pretty awesome because that leads into the ability to do a lot of jumps around the battlefield, get in the air, do some cool flanking.
And then through the upgrades, you actually get to even add more onto that. Your rocket pack becomes a little more durable, you get a little more boost, and eventually you get guns on it.
And so what we're trying to do is give the player a number of different experiences instead of just one over and over.
You've got your guns, you're hitting cover, you're blind firing.
And just start meleeing and taking them out.
So you could be on foot sometimes, you could be doing vertical.
You're zipping around through all these different canyon areas. Eventually you're jumping onto UFOs, running around the outside of it.
You're sort of ducking and weaving from the pilot.
Trying to piss off the robotic guy inside, so he opens up his hatch, jumping in there.
Expose the pilot, bust him in the head.
And then you're taking over that UFO and in a very kind of Crimson Skies-esque way, using that UFO to blow up all of these other vehicles.
And suddenly I'm going, holy crap.
It's definitely visceral, and any way you look at it, it's way more fun to shoot someone in the head at point blank than it is to sort of whittle away from long range. So it's nice to bring ground combat into the air in that way. Capcom's known for a few key things, whether it's Resident Evil or it's Street Fighter. Great production values, very visceral, action-packed experiences, strong, memorable characters.
If you look at all of their characters from Ryu to Mega Man, they've got this style about them. There's something about them they're iconic and they kind of pop.
I think the American characters tend to be much more shallow. You know, a big guy who runs out there and shoots everything. What we want to do is, I think, more like what some of the Japanese games do.
We wanted Will to be somebody who looked very capable, but not somebody who just looked like an impossible caricature.
ですので、 過去のですね、カプコンキャラどのキャラクターにも負けないだけの、力を持ったキャラクター。
There's a common school of wisdom that says your character needs to be a blank slate so that the player can be in the first person. One of the quotes that Infinite generally says is, no, your character should be a character.
Will is an ex-military pilot who's been beaten down by life a little bit.
So I guess this is it.
Isn't it time to do something?
And what difference would it make, Ava?
I mean, Will's kind of a jerk.
In his own world, on his own, doesn't need anyone's help, isn't asking for anyone's help.
The new guy. You must have someone pulling the strings.
His main motivation in the beginning is just, I want to get the hell out of here. I don't want to be in this place. I want to get home. And over the course of the story, he starts realizing, actually, maybe I should try to help these other people get out of here as well.
窮地に追い込まれてるっていうかですね、そこを脱出するために
Outside of his character flaws, Will is cool. He is probably a little more gung-ho than the rest of us. Like, he straps a jetpack to his back, doesn't even know how to use it.
ベストだとすればですね、彼は
He's not coming in on a big tank with, 50 other guys. A lot of times it's just him on a rocket pack slipping through the cracks. And that makes him very dangerous. Ava actually is a complicated character. She's a love interest of Will's. Back in the day, when they first met each other, they almost got married and stuff, and it didn't work out.
Not the dramatic love tension of like a love that's about to happen. It's sort of that, like walking in on like your parents bickering. Like there's an old fight that's going on.
Ava knows a lot more than she's letting on, and over the course of the game, the player is going to start to realize that.
Things you think you know, you were right, but not fully, and here's the full story behind them. Ava represents one of the few people that actually knows.
So, Taffy, I see you've brought guests.
Tesla is one of the coolest characters we could ever have tapped into.
Nikola Tesla in the game is a scientist and an inventor who has been lost and somehow has ended up in the void.
He's kind of operating in this laboratory on the fringe of society and is really spearheading a revolt.
This should help you negotiate the kingdom.
He's the person that's giving them access to all of these cool gadgets, the helmet for the hover pack and the big airship, the Ark that they're using to get across these big expanses in the void.
If Will represents the sort of brawny, agile part of what they needed in a hero, Tesla is definitely the brains of the operation.
It's a little rare the way that we're using Tesla in this game because he is a real world figure and there is all this backstory on him, and we think that's really exciting.
I think Tesla's cool. He's like the misunderstood genius of, the first part of this century.
Historically, Tesla is a scientist and an inventor. He arguably created the radio.
I mean, I think he's best known for his work on the transmission of electricity. Everyone's familiar with the Tesla coil. Most people don't know really what it's for, but it's about energy transmission.
Edison was so frightened of him that this famous rivalry existed between the two that even to this day is kind of almost mythically out of proportion.
There's all kinds of these weird different things that are associated with Tesla. There was ideas from Tesla about teleportation. He created this death ray. He might have had contact with aliens.
He was testing something and, trees are falling over on the other side of the world.
Before Tesla was found ultimately dead, he had actually been gone for a while, a couple days that no one could ever account for. So we're actually playing with that, saying that, 3 days on Earth could be 20 years in the void, right?
The art style and the tech and weaponry of Dark Void is pretty unique. It's got kind of this ragtag, throw it together thing with Tesla technology. We were kind of calling it Tesla punk for a little bit is what we were saying. Just picture Tesla with a mohawk and you know what our game is.
We've got sort of two different factions in this world. One of them is human-based. Then there's this super advanced civilization. So we've got weapons and technology that's just really based in late 1930s technology versus this super advanced stuff.
What's fun in the game is, as Will, you get to pick up all this cool Tesla stuff, which is grungy, clunky, chunky, but awesome, and then also have access to this clean alien stuff.
Tesla's able to take a lot of this technology and expand upon it, use his own ingenuity to really, you know, make it usable for humans.
The jetpack is pretty much Tesla's, it's the pinnacle of his creation since his time in the void.
It starts out with more of a hover pack and then it evolves into a rocket pack. And it's so experimental that the first time you use it, everybody tries to discourage you from using it.
Are you crazy? You'll kill yourself.
面白さにもなってますし、なんか、メカニカルな部分であったりとか、サイエンスフィクションの部分とかですね、そういう部分がすごく面白いのかなっていうふうに、それがやっぱダークボイドの、空飛ぶ違いだと思いますね。
I think the jetpack really does tie the look of both the futuristic sci-fi watcher stuff we've got going on and that retro Tesla stuff, because you've got the cool sleek forms and this really future thing going on, but then we've got big tubes and guns kind of just bolted onto the side of it and stuff.
He can even hover and fire his own weapons in his hands, so the combination of those things pull him together into this sort of one-man army in the sky.
I think it's the perfect fusion and probably one of the most iconic pieces of tech that you see in the game.
Will's able to carry 2 weapons at a time, so certain weapon combos open up certain fun events. So for example, we'll say Will is under fire by about 4 guys. Laying down a Watcher grenade, which is this expanding sphere of death, would pretty much pin down 2 or 3 of those guys with a quick hover pack jump to circumvent from the flank and then take out the rest. So what could have been 3 minutes of fighting, if you're quick, you could make it a 15-second encounter and be moving on. Finding these like fun combos, I think is going to be pretty fun for people.
My favorite weapon is the disintegrator gun. Shoot once, keep moving. It's a very powerful gun. It'll take out some enemies with 1 shot.
I like the Magnetar a lot. It's kind of got this anti-gravity thing going on, so it's like bubble bobble but different, where you can kind of zap the guys and they'll float up in the air and they're there kind of flailing around, and I think that stuff's pretty fun.
So every weapon has 2 levels of upgrade after you obtain it. So one example, the Liberator, its upgrade path, you get it, it's straight SMG shooting bullets. I think the next upgrade is like, it's an increase on clip size and a bit of accuracy, which is like, oh ho hum. The ultimate upgrade is explosive rounds. And that's like, okay, now this got really exciting. So my rat-a-tat-tat now becomes rat-a-boom-boom.
There's a ton of design challenges when you're trying to create a new sci-fi shooter. We looked back at a lot of those old pulp serials and then some of the new modern things like Battlestar Galactica. And of course, we got Bear McCreary doing the music, so that helps. And then we just kind of fused it and merged it together to make something that we think is a little bit different, but still hits that kind of classic, cool sci-fi feel.
To me, enemies are a blast to design. The interesting thing about enemies is that they're never obvious, and yet to make it a challenge of something that you can come across surprises you, gives you a slight amount of familiarity, so it's not so foreign that you don't know how to approach it or what to do. That's where the real challenges lie to me.
The main conflict in the world of Dark Void for Will, who is our main character through it, is really just you want to get home. But the Watchers have inhabited the Void, they've taken over, they've enslaved a lot of people there, so it's just this whole idea of how do I get back to Earth?
The Watchers are a reptilian alien race that has actually been subjugating humanity for pretty much since we crawled out of the sea. They lost their foothold on Earth, got kicked back to the Void, and have been scheming at how to basically make the hairless monkeys that we are kowtow and bow before them en masse again.
Show us the way to our salvation.
そうですね、ダークボイド自体はですね、まだまだ完成度が、上がるゲームだと。
Inafune-san sat down and talked with us at an early stage about where we were working with our characters. And one of the key elements were some of the robotic characters that we were fighting. And they started off as pure mechanical characters.
We've got these robotic enemies and fighting them is okay, but people aren't going to have that same feel as if they were fighting a living, thinking creature. So one of the first things that he did when he got here was look at our enemies and our enemy design and say, how can we make these living creatures? What can we do to make the player feel like they're engaged with something that's thinking and actually is going to bring the fight back to you?
I think getting that living thing behind the metal totally they sort of boosted our fiction.
So there's all kinds of different Watchers. They start out as these little tiny gross slug things, and those control some of the larger pawns that you'll be dealing with. And they slowly evolve to the Sarpa.
The Archon, the giant sort of cat boss, and the Flying Knight are basically vehicles for the Sarpa. And then their ultimate evolutionary stage is what we call an elder.
And the elders are actually the most humanoid, and they're the ones that can shape-shift.
In our fiction, the elders have been manipulating human history by taking different shapes of world leaders and causing all kinds of problems for human beings.
In spite of Dark Void being a sort of Western-style game from genre and storyline, it's still a Capcom game, and Capcom, like, we go big, right? Our bosses are ridiculously big.
The Archon, which we've showed a lot, is this big kind of reptilian scorpion thing, and the way you approach that can be pretty fun too.
You can approach it from the front, and there's an entirely different sequence that occurs. If you approach it from the back, it's wildly different.
The enemies are definitely a big threat to Will, but one of the biggest threats is really the environment. The void is unstable. It's falling apart. It's a dying dimension.
You have to kind of watch where you go. There are things that live in the void that are pretty nasty.
The void is a very, very dangerous place to be, which is the reason you want to get home.
未知の世界っていう部分と未知の生物っていう部分とあと人間の憧れっていう部分がですね、そのミックスされて、やっぱり見たことのないもの、やったことのないものっていうかですね、すごくそこに、みんなが知りたいものみたいなところが集約されてるっていうところをうまくその映像として、表現できてる部分もあるので、そういうところがやっぱダークボイドの美しさっていうかですね、魅力になってるのかなと思いますね。
Capcom has a long history of making really excellent games, and from the start we've tried to keep the quality bar high, make the bosses memorable, and just keep the action fun.
From a gameplay perspective, you have a jetpack. Get off the ground, rise up. There's not a lot of games out there that give you that sort of player freedom,
but also kind of alludes to what happens in the plot line with the human beings trapped in the void. They rise up and revolt against the Watchers.
It also is something that we feel like we're doing here at Airtight Games. This is our flagship title. We're all rising up to this challenge of how do you make a AAA game with a startup studio with new blood and old blood, and how does it all merge together? And I think we're doing a pretty good job.
I would say one of the hardest things to nail down in a game is your main character. We probably had at least 5, maybe 10 different iterations, and I'm talking complete iterations of our main character. We didn't want to turn him into a cardboard cutout superhero.
We're all imperfect in some way, and I think that's why Will is such an interesting character to me, because he's got issues. He's got relationship issues with Ava. He's got some kind of ego things that he needs to deal with over the course of the game. We're all flawed, and that makes an interesting character and interesting stories. How do you deal with those flaws? How do you manage in a world that's not perfect?
Inafune-san repeatedly would say, never shortchange the newness to the character in the world. So when Will first kills a Watcher, we had nothing. It was like, okay, enemy down, keep going. Based on that feedback from Inafune-san, we're like, wow, you know what? We should have Will pause a moment, take a look. Like, we know what this is. He doesn't know what this is. This is new to him. And so bringing out that, I guess you could say, the nuance of performance from the lead character was specifically a ball we would have dropped completely were it not for Inafune-san's feedback.
It's one of those things where right before you're getting ready to show the public what you've really been working on, you get really tense and you get really worried, like, oh man, is this any good? You're so close to it, you can't tell if it's good or if it's garbage. And as soon as we started showing some of the videos of where we were really at and what was really going on, to watch the fan reaction and to see people say, like, I want a jetpack right now, or jetpack, I'm sold, or any of that stuff, it gets the team excited, because you realize, you know what, maybe we are doing something special here. Maybe we are making something that is gonna, stand up to the test of time, or at least we hope it is.
I'm Bear McCreary, the composer for Dark Void, and we're here at the Warner Brothers scoring stage, recording orchestra for the game score. I've been into film and game music as long as I can remember. It's basically all I've ever wanted to do. The film music that really inspired me in the early days, Empire Strikes Back, but also Back to the Future and a lot of Danny Elfman's works, Beetlejuice, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, stuff even before Batman. These are things that really caught my ear. On the gaming side of things, actually, it was a Capcom title. It was Mega Man 2 that I heard this and I was like, this music is awesome. So I always wanted to do video game music. So when I got the call for Dark Void, I leapt at the opportunity to work for Capcom. The music for Dark Void is an interesting departure for me. I think that in sci-fi realms, my work has become quite well known because of how different it is. I score Battlestar Galactica with a lot of taiko drums. I score Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles with a lot of metal percussion. And the interesting thing about Dark Void is that for me, what makes it different is that it's a little more normal. There's a little more of an orchestral presence in this score than there's been in anything that I've done before. This game is so epic, the story is so big, that I felt it was important to pay tribute to some of the great sci-fi scores that have inspired me in the past. One of the things that we're doing for this project is we're recording the strings separate from the winds and brass. The main reason we're doing this is to make the music more adaptable. What we're doing is we're taking my compositions and we're cutting them up into individual little modules, say 15 to 20 seconds worth. Those modules then, during gameplay, can be reordered and resequenced. My goal is that the player can play the entire game through and never hear the same exact piece of music twice. I wanted to make it unfamiliar, because part of my issue as I play games is you get so familiar with the music that by the time you get into the third or fourth hour, the music has just become something to listen to while you're playing the game. It might as well be System of a Down or Britney Spears or anything, it doesn't matter. It's not making it tense because you're familiar with it. So by resequencing things, making it so your brain doesn't automatically know what the next section is going to be, my idea is that will make the music more tense. It will make the gameplay experience a little more heightened as your mind can't get comfortable with the music. The most fun part of the game is obviously getting to fly, and so among our initial discussions was to come up with music for when you're flying and music for when you're on the ground. It was a great idea in theory. The problem that we found is, as I started messing around with the gameplay and we started really talking about how to implement it, is that the most exciting part of this game is you can fly whenever you want. You can or you can stay on the ground. It's really up to the player. It's not like there's a ground level and then a flying level. So the problem was, if the music is changing, then you could take off for 5 seconds and the music could go da-da-da-da-da, and then you decide, no, I'm going to walk around for a little bit, and then it just stops. So we realized that approach really wouldn't work. In general, then, my approach was to write music for levels where you would probably be flying, or music for levels where you'd probably be on foot. But again, the fun part of it is that it's completely up to the player.
In a sleepy office park in Seattle, the development team at Airtight Games is hard at work to transport you to another dimension in their upcoming game, Dark Void. We're going to be taking a look at the fantastical storyline and vertigo-inducing gameplay, so strap on a jetpack, it's time to enter the void. First, you might be a little skeptical of Dark Void's paranormal premise. While not your typical sci-fi zero-gravity space romp, Dark Void might just be the gem all you paranormal, conspiracy theorists, and/or jetpack fans have been waiting for.
The basic premise is Will, our hero, kind of down as a cargo pilot, takes a detour through the Bermuda Triangle in a storm, ends up in the void. There, a bunch of ragtag humans have been subjugated by these aliens called the Watchers forever. Will ultimately hooks up with the resistance movement, a bunch of guys trying to get back to Earth, fighting the Watchers, which Tesla has sort of been the brains of for a while. Will becomes the agile brawn, the two join forces, and you begin to kick a lot of alien butt on your way to sort of get yourself back to Earth.
The void is a dangerous place full of hostile environments. Dense, lush jungles, precarious cliffs, and giant jutting pillars made of rock that reach up to the sky, their bases obscured by the clouds below. Throughout these locales are all kinds of amazing structures built by the Watchers, which pose unique challenges as you pick and choose how you want to take them out. Although the game starts out with a basic shoot-take-cover mechanic, it's the melee madness that really sold and surprised us. These moves aren't only fun, but also add some flourish as a finishing move to a shooting charge, and frankly, that just doesn't get old. Your first real mission involves helping Tesla collect bits of technology with the help of the Watcher hover pack he gives you.
Take whatever you need to repair the planes, but make sure you retrieve the sonar box. I've marked its location.
It's actually a great way to get used to negotiating the treacherous ledges in the void. Although the Resistance has some basic weapons you can use, it's the Watcher's advanced technology and weaponry that kick futuristic butt.
You know how to handle that?
What do you think?
You'll start out with a Survivor-made Liberator machine gun you find. While basic and perfectly functional, you'll very quickly come across an Oppressor, which is basically a Watcher machine gun, which we preferred because it has a certain alien-busting je ne sais quoi. But our personal favorite is the Disintegrator. Although touting much less ammo, it can obliterate a Watcher in one single, satisfying blast. And grenades always come in handy when you find groups of Watchers in a small area, or if you need to blow through a sealed door. We like the Watcher grenades in particular, since they create an expanding orb of death that instantly cooks those critters into a crisp. Upgrade any and all of these weapons at caches in a number of ways by spending collected energy both released from dead Watchers and also hidden in other locations. Since taking cover is such a big part of Dark Void, you'll be able to blast away wildly at Watchers from behind various objects, or zoom in and take more precise aim. And just a warning, be sure to take your Dramamine before strapping on your jetpack, because as you progress through the game, you'll be introduced to all kinds of vertigo-inducing sequences, including the innovative vertical cover system, where you battle the Watchers on, up, and over cliffs. Even if you aren't really afraid of heights, you'll still get that sweaty palm feeling, especially since sometimes you won't know which way is up, well, until a body falls past you. Yep, that gravity will always keep you down.
We definitely wanted a touch of vertigo for sure. There's something that is really exciting the first time you go into vertical cover and you're looking down and you're looking off this big cliff and you get that little butterflies in your stomach.
Once you get the hang of the vertical level design and the hover pack, it isn't long until you take a leap of aerodynamic faith with the jetpack and never look back.
Well, here goes nothing.
Try to get those cheesy Rocketeer images out of your head because this bad boy does double duty, letting you hover angelically or zip around like an airborne maniac. The flight in Dark Void is impressive. Flying with the jetpack on is pretty seamless, but takeoffs and landings can be tricky. But you can always use the hover mode to ease the transition. Once you get the hang of the flight mechanics, you'll soon find yourself outclassed by some funky-looking Watcher ships. If you get close enough, you can actually hijack one of these ships. That is, if you can hang on long enough by mashing the buttons displayed on the screen as they try and shake you, blast you, and basically make your life difficult. But payback is a bitch, and once you pry open the ship's control panel in a fun skyjacking minigame, you'll get your chance to show that otherworldly enemy pilot inside exactly what you think of his flying skills. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. Once you've commandeered a vessel, you'll be able to take out other Watcher ships with your guns and seeker missiles, which lock on if you target enemies directly. The ships, as well as the jetpack, can reverse course mid-flight with ease. This is super handy, especially if you want to blow away a bogey right behind you. Overall, we were pleasantly surprised by the fluidity and maneuvering in the flying sections. With a bit of practice, you'll be a real jetpacking menace, able to eradicate aliens with ease. That is, until you come face to face with a nasty, gigantic boss.
We are a Capcom game, so we definitely pump up the boss fight stuff at certain points. I would say that the game definitely gets epic. There's moments where you're flying around in your rocket pack, you've got the Ark, which is the Survivor's giant airship that's with you, and you've got other Watcher airships that are coming in and UFOs, so it just becomes a huge dogfight. And yeah, it gets very, very epic. And then our ending boss is pretty epic as well. It gets pretty cool.
Just like hijacking Watcher vehicles, you can defeat this boss in a timing-based minigame. If you can mash the on-screen button fast enough to hang on and still manage to crack open the tough exoskeleton, there's a squishy little prize inside. Yummy. All in all, our hands-on time with Dark Void left us intrigued. Variety is the name of this action-packed game, with plenty of it throughout. The fantastical storyline is over the top and should keep anyone with a penchant for the paranormal interested. The vertical navigation and combat is dizzying and innovative, and the flight combat defies gravity with aplomb. In Dark Void, there is one thing you can always count on. What goes up must come down. And for us, this Capcom release is on the up and up.